This is a video which is going to be entitled America, the Heist. When I was in grade 6, I read a book called Runner for the King, which is about the marathon runners in South America who used to deliver messages on the roads that the Aztecs had built by running and passing them on to the next guy. These messages were encoded in rope language, with a language of knots, so no one could read it. And from that history, I have the Aztec necklace, traditionally worn by the Queen. So listen up when I talk to you. For those who don't know history, which is pretty well everybody, in 1965, the United States had 50% of the wealth on the planet, and it was 2.5% of the population. 2.5% is the percent of psychopaths in the human race. Interesting correlation. Now, America was an experiment behind the British Empire, behind. There are people who manipulate and run the world, and America, North and South, was let lie fallow for a long time. And then it was discovered, and those from Europe invaded and genocided the locals and took over and brought it up to what it is today, and the only success really was the United States of America, which is what they wanted to see. What would happen if we let these people go and give them liberty? And if you know about words, liberty is not freedom. Liberty is what a sailor gets. You're allowed to go out and be free for a while, but you have to come back. So the people in North America, the colonists, were granted liberty, and they have done quite well for themselves. And now it's time to pay the piper. Those who are the behind people got what they wanted, which is artificial intelligence and surveillance and the Industrial Revolution. And now they want to pull out and start a new kind of world based on that. The experiment is over in North America. And medium-sized history, people in Europe paid for the original 13 colonies to be set up, for the shipping, for the supplies. That money was supposed to be paid back. It wasn't paid back. The American Revolution ended that. Then a little while later, Britain came and, to get their money back, seized the patent office and burned it down. So they took all the patents, which were some form of payment. And I think there was a second minor invasion where they burned down the capital. I don't know about that. I'm in Canada. And very close to modern times, the New Deal, by whichever president that was. America went broke a second time. Let me back up a second. The 13 colonies failed financially and had to go back to the people they'd screwed over and ask for a loan, and they got a loan, and the terms were very bad. 1933, they still hadn't been able to put it together, so they had to go back for a second loan. That was the New Deal, and that was a horrific deal. This is where the taxes came in, and the gold standard was taken away, and your wherever you live has a number on it, because that's an address of some private property that someone else owns that you're only leasing. So all the gold was given away, all the property was given away, and all of the fruits of the labor of all of the people in there were given away in the form of taxation to what would look like the City of London, Great Britain, or maybe probably the Vatican. So we have North America started on a crime, which is the crime of genocide and the crime of not paying back the money that was owed. And now we have the reckoning, which will be the New World Order. I'll give you a couple examples and then lead up to the relevant. There's a book called 1984, which is a playbook or a warning that was given out to all of us about what the future would be like. And it's a totalitarian future where the world is controlled by the news, and the news is fake. There are three huge conglomerates, INGSOC, which is English Society, Eurasia, which is all of Europe and Russia, and East Asia, which is China. And they're all fighting over possession of Africa. There's a constant war going on. And the war is actually against the people by the government, just keep them upset, poor, rationed. And for this to work worldwide, the experiment of North America has to be taken down because it's a bad example for the rest of the world. If you look at, we just go around the world. Mexico, problems. Yucatan, problems. Brazil, problems. Argentina, problems. Colombia, problems. Australia, totalitarianism already. All those Pacific Islands, we have revolution and corruption. China, communism, suppression of the people. Russia, communism and suppression of the people. The Arabic countries, suppression of women, no water. Luckily, they have all the oil to sell. And the big disaster in the center of Europe with Poland and Czechoslovakia, Romania, Lithuania. There's been war going on there for 1,700 years and probably 3,500 years. The church went through there and eradicated all other religions, using an army to do so. Germany and their wars, their colonialism, England and the British Empire. The sun never sets on the British Empire. Slavery, drugs. It's not a well-meaning world. And America, with its freedom of speech and elected representation, has been the beacon of hope for all these people. And it's time to get rid of the beacon. That's what's going on. And there are power brokers not too far behind the scenes who are the visible leaders of this, like George Soros has taken down 23 countries so far, and Jeff Bezos, World Economic Forum. And you wouldn't think America could be taken down, but it's being taken down by 1,000 cuts. There's been problems with the U.S. government since the days of Franklin and the FBI, famous FBI director, and Barry Goldwater and Nixon and Kennedy being shot and the war in Vietnam. And goes on and on. It's never been peaceful. Corruption is rampant. So it's actually an easy target. Somebody has a figure saying the American government is the best government you can buy, and the price of buying it is about $1.8 million a year. And that was tolerable when that was just to get your business advantage by getting that government contract. But now it's totalitarian communist takeover of the beacon of light, and it will go down hard. Now, the reason the Constitution has freedom of speech and the right to bear arms is the gentlemen who put together the country were very aware of the history of Europe and the history of war and the history of suppression, kings, etc. And when you're not allowed to talk about the corruption that's going on, you can't get enough people together to stop it. When you can't have a weapon, you can't stop the thugs who come in the middle of the night from coming and killing you for talking about the corruption. Criminal think is I must have, but I can't work for it, so I have to steal it, which is governments and kings and warlords and I was going to say oligarchs, but I think they actually run businesses. They're successful because they use government corruption to make sure they get the big contracts. So the problem with America is free speech, which is now being expunged from the large free social media like YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok, which is Chinese, apparently. They have tremendous reach and they're free, and it's the tremendous reach that makes them valuable, not the fact that they're free. You can't buy the exposure on a private network that you can get on YouTube. And I know that YouTube was forced by the US government to give them a duplicate of everything that goes through there. Absolutely everything. So you can't blame them. They were forced to do that. And the excuse was, as it always is, national security. On the good side of that, I do know that an atomic bomb snuck into Dallas was stopped because of this. This was years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Someone was going to take out the oil refinery down there next to the naval base. So this current, we have to get the guns away from the Americans, and the excuse is the shootings of children. And the great crime and shame in that is it's not the crazy man who did that. That crazy man was put together by MK Ultra technology and turned into that and sent out to do that. So these people behind people are sacrificing children through these mass shootings to get the guns away from America, so that the totalitarian forces of, pick a number, China, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the Kigali principles, can come in and get rid of the freedom-liking Americans. I was going to say freedom-loving, but they're not. They're freedom-liking. This is the what's holding China back. They said if we want to take America, there'll be an American with a rifle behind every rock. So we can't do it with direct assault unless we can get the guns. Obama signed away the law that disallowed the American army to be used against Americans. And he gave away your water rights to Britain and the rivers all the way up to where they start. And he signed with the UN that if there's really bad insurrection going on or civil war, the UN can come in to stop it with their peacekeepers who get between the warring sides and push them apart and say, now boys, let's play nice. And they do this with truckloads of AK-47 bearing people hired from the third world. Shamefully, we just had the first version of that in Canada, where the Prime Minister brought in these UN thugs to get rid of the demonstration. These people were wearing green unmarked uniforms and didn't speak English. And the theory on the other side is if they can get troops from 197 countries and add them all up, they'll be able to have enough manpower to invade the United States and get rid of it. So we can have totalitarianism and poverty and misery worldwide. And that is the New World Order. There's probably about 200 people who are running this into the ground. They're mostly billionaires and multi-billionaires. For example, Argentina. What's Argentina? Has tons of oil. It could be a wealthy nation, and they were until the communists got in there with the help of a lettered agency, because somebody in America who makes their living importing oil from the Middle East didn't want Argentinian oil eating into the system. And they were so nice. There was one time where Texas was being frozen out, and the government down there said, we'll give you oil. We won't even charge you. Just take the oil and heat your homes. That was stopped. So they have an entire nation in poverty, almost, where they're eating grass and rats. So some multi-generational, multi-billionaire family can keep their candy. There's gotta be a crime on some level, or corruption on some level. Peter Ouspensky, Russian philosopher, said that what we don't have on earth is the conception that a government can be criminal and should be arrested and jailed. Just stop it. Corporations, and I think the number of CEOs that have gone to jail in the last 15 years are 2. Everyone else bails and moves to Florida because in Florida, no matter how bad your legal situation, they can't take your house, your furniture, or your car. So you move to Florida and invest your money in the multi-billion-dollar manager and a couple of Ferraris, and let your lawyer fend off your problems for 10 years. And if you need money, you can always sell your house. So when Omicron happened, it spread through the news like wildfire. It was unstoppable. It was every channel. This school shooting is spreading like wildfire through every channel, everywhere. And it's just another one. I'm just going to use that. It may sound callous, but the problem is not Americans with guns. The problem is these evil people pick some psychologically weak person and take him and program him with mind control and set them loose on your children. And then they go, oh, we have to get the guns away from absolutely everybody. Behind that, you have the National Rifle Association is always killing the bills for gun control. And the gun control bills are not even to stop you from having a gun. They just want you to have a background check and keep the gun in a locked box so children won't blow their hands off. They're not trying to take the guns away. They really are, but they're not saying that. So the problem with that is probably a lot of people in the NRA wouldn't pass a background check. But it doesn't mean they're evil psychotics. I think a lot of people wouldn't pass a background check. These people with guns will be the only people defending you against the foreign troops. They'll be training you. They'll probably have guns to lend to the more courageous citizens. Because if you don't have a gun, you'll be running in the streets squealing like a pig. Or they'll round you up and put you in a truck, sell your children, rape your daughter, and the house will go, that number on your house, that address, that's a piece of property that's not owned by you. That will go to someone, probably Chinese. I think they're going to sell North America to the Chinese for a lot of money. And to do that, you need to get rid of the Americans. The Chinese have said we want America, but we don't want the people. We're actually going to do a genocide. And this is too big to contemplate? No. I was in a bank here who was, doesn't matter what bank, it was in a bank at night. And every contract in the bank was for a Chinese person to get Canadian citizenship if they came in and bought property and invested in Canada. Every time a farm goes out of business in Canada, it's bought by Chinese interests. I heard that the oil sands project is being worked by Chinese labor at minimum wage, and how we found out was they kicked out all the Canadians, and the Canadian raised such a stink that now they're working side by side at their real wages with the Chinese minimum wage laborers. Loses death by 1,000 cuts. it's not a shipload of Chinese soldiers landing in the ports after the submarines have sent missiles to blow up all the nearby military bases. It's done with pieces of paper. We own this, sorry. China's at the bursting point, literally and figuratively. Every square yard of China that can be cultivated is under cultivation. If that big dam ever breaks, it'll take out millions of people and millions of acres of farmland. And I believe they look at North America at the population density and go, what? You guys aren't even using it. Where I am right here, there's 1.2 million people. And the next big city, there isn't one. This province is maybe 800 miles wide and 700 or 800 miles tall. And it's populated with pine trees. Bears, rabbits, chipmunks, cougars. And we're no sweethearts up here. This land was appropriated, colonized. I was at a cultural event weekend at the Indian Cultural Center, and there was a lecture going on. The guy said, after colonization, I almost jumped out of my skin, because that's the truth. Including smallpox-ridden blankets, and the current ongoing debacle about the residential schools where the children of the natives were forced to live in and forced to learn English and kept away from their parents, not allowed to use their native language or native skill sets. And a lot of them died by the hundreds, maybe by the thousands. It's just coming out now. Right now, today, they're digging them up. They're exhuming the bodies to see what went on. Still waiting for an apology from the Catholic Church for doing that. So, everybody and their dog is going to be doing a video about, oh, the school shooting, what a tragedy. That's not the tragedy. The tragedy is somebody ordered that to be done. And somebody trained that kid using mind control technology from MK Ultra, which is me, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, to have that happen. The kids were sacrificed to get the guns away from you so that communist socialists can come in and murder you. Defenseless, woke, oh, gun control, Obama, Hillary, You will be running in the street and squealing like pigs. The great Americans, the great freedom-liking Americans. If you can't see it, I think you deserve what you get. Food chains collapsing. Price of gas going up just because for years those people have been jealous that we're paying half of what they pay in Europe. And they, oh, we should just be paying what they pay in Europe. Just because. Electric cars, yeah, whatever. And secondly, there isn't enough energy in the electrical grid to power all those cars. To move all that iron will take the same amount of energy as being done with gasoline, and there is not enough electricity to do that. And just as a little codicil, look that up. The technology to do that already exists in golf carts, but they won't allow golf carts on the road. They won't allow that simple solution to be spread out into the personal car, which you can use to go get groceries and come back or pick up your kids from school. No, 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 no. It has to be a $60,000 Tesla. Or who knows, there's some small companies that do it. There's even a power car from India powered by compressed air. Completely environmentally friendly. And all of this stuff right back to the 60s, this flower power, woke, peace, love, bringing in the Indian religions, has been to soften up America for this takedown. And it's been 60 years of diligent work to do this. And it's being done by people. It's not yet being done by force. We have elected representatives looking at a piece of paper and arguing over the words on it, and then they pass it and it becomes a law. And that's all it is. It has no power other than agreement, or they will send thugs to your door with guns and throw you into a cage, which is no different from feudalism. If you cross the ruler, paid thugs will come and get you and throw you in a cage. So the situation has not changed worldwide. It was different in North America while the experiment went on, and the experiment is over. And if you, in the sense of giving up, think no matter how bad it gets, if they just will leave me alone, they can have whatever they want. They won't leave you alone because their delight is in tormenting and torturing you. They don't want to leave you alone. Let me see your papers, please. Come in for an interrogation. We're watching you through your TV and through your computer. In 1984, the book, they have something called thought crime. If they even suspect you're thinking about being unhappy with the government, you can be arrested for thought crime. And one of the ministries in that book was the Ministry of Truth. And they have just tried to start that, or they're calling it the Ministry of Misinformation. If you're spreading misinformation, it's a crime. Even though the misinformation might be your opinion under free speech, I think this is the way this is. Oh no, it must go away. And there's a back end warning. Things will never go back the way they were, and we have monkeypox coming, which will probably be another lockdown and more forced vaccinations. Interestingly enough, they discovered a stockpile of vaccines for monkeypox, which seems like BS because monkeypox used to be in one area of Africa and there would be 1 or 2 cases a year. So why would they have a stockpile of monkeypox vaccine? And the monkeypox thing is spread across the world just as fast as the Omicron. Oh my God, Omicron, oh my God, Omicron. Every possible channel and YouTube blogger. Monkeypox and the school shooting. This is controlling you and softening you up for giving up your guns. And the food chain collapsing, the money collapsing. Inflation is going to force you to line up and shut up. Like in totalitarian countries, do you remember that in Russia and middle of Czechoslovakia, Poland, you name it, people had to wait a week till a certain day. Maybe the bread comes in on Thursday, so you can line up on Thursday and you're allowed to buy 2 loaves. Or shoes. The shoes come in every month. You have to line up to get shoes, and you have to take what you can get in your size. Because the factories are unable to produce enough product because they're run by the government, not entrepreneurs. Government socialists can't run a business and make it work. So their answer is, well, we'll throw more bodies at it, and those bodies are the populace who are turned into slaves to usher in the paradise. Under an overarching moral imperative. Which we have now as under global warming and save the environment. These are phrases translated from communism. Wish I could remember them exactly. But the general population has fallen for the narrative because they have never been, no one's ever reached out and touched them and said, maybe what you're being told is not true. And the confront of evil is the lowest confront of all. And evil people know that. You can't confront me because I'm scary, big and scary. The answer to big and scary is the gun, the great equalizer. So they have to be taken away. So Mr. Big and Scary doesn't get shot in the head. Also, the end of every empire, it's always a woman who brings down an empire. So somewhere there's a mom who's going to stop this. And if you're listening to this, maybe it's you, so you better get busy. Plus, they are taking out your children. I'm not going to say how. But remember, in World War II, these people are worse than Nazis. The Nazis were sterilizing the men and women, so they couldn't have any children. That was like the ultimate evil at the time. And now it's far worse than that. So I do what I can. I would write a book, but no one reads books anymore, so I'm doing the celebrity in cars having coffee. Which is the realization of Marshall McLuhan's statement. The medium is the message. The fact that I have a cell phone and I'm in a car and I can broadcast to the entire world is the message. We have the communication capability to spread this message worldwide in 6 hours. But it's not allowed on the major platforms or the major news outlets. And there were laws to prevent that in the United States, and they were one by one taken out in secret. So now we have 3 or 6 giant news outlet owned by 3 people, I think. And we have big social media giants owned by 1 person each. And me. If I'm all you got, you're in big trouble.